Okay, so today we have pull B going down, second rotation for pull. Today is more of a lat focused pull session, whereas the first pull session of the week is more upper back. So going to be running through quite a few exercises. First one in the day today is hanging leg raises. So ab work, need to improve the abs. It's not going to take anything away from the rest of the session. Usually you'll find if you're leaving your ab work to the end of the session, it's going to suffer and you're going to half-ass it. So we get it done first. Plus, it's good for getting stability around your hips as well, which we're going to need. Getting the core nice and warmed up for the big heavy compound movements we've got coming later. Then we're moving on to prone dumbbell retractions. So starting off, getting the T-spine warmed up, upper back, thoracic spine all warmed up and ready for the session 2. Single arm dumbbell rows, single arm pull downs. You'll notice a lot of stuff today on the menu is single arm work. Reason being, when it's single arm, you can get into better positions, especially with something like back, where most of us struggle with getting a good feel and a good connection. Single arm work is a great way to get around that. So you can put more effort into it, you can get more stable, and you can usually get more out of it. Especially you'll find as we get bigger, or as you get older, we get a wee bit stiffer and become a wee bit more internally rotated. It gets harder to line up, especially get our elbows in nice and tight and get a good connection with the lats. So doing stuff like a lot of single arm work is going to be a good way around that. So I will chat through all the other exercises as we come by them and explain them further. But today's lat focused pull session, and we have Mr. McMuscle joining us too. So let's get into it. Right. During this exercise, I've just got one warm-up set coming up first. It's quite an easy exercise. Due to the prep work I've done already, the abs are pretty warm, so it's only going to take one warm-up set. Also, grip's a factor in these hanging leg raises too, so you'll see I strap up as well. Another thing you'll notice, so I'm looking for a neutral hand grip, right? But because of my shoulder width, I'm not going to take these two narrow ones. It's too narrow, so I'm going to go here and out here, so I can line up with a grip that's pretty in line with my shoulder width. Neutral will be a wee bit easier for my shoulders to get into too. A couple of things I'm looking for in this. I'm trying to keep the legs as straight as possible, trying to minimize momentum so there's no swinging going on here. And this is a great way to start your pull sessions and get your abs warmed up. So one warm-up set, and then I'll get into the working sets on it. Again, with the warm-up sets, there's going to be a lot of reps in reserve. I'm not pushing myself too hard here. I'll probably only do 4 or 5 reps to get a feel for it, and then the next set we'll go for about 14 or 15. So one of the things we're looking for in this as well, I'm trying not to go into that anterior pelvic tilt. So this is neutral hips, posterior pelvic tilt, so your hips are tucked under. Anterior pelvic tilt is like that insta-hoe up position, I like to call it, where you're sticking your hips out. So at the bottom of this, try not to let the hips sink behind you and stick them out. So trying to stay quite neutral. If anything, stay in a bit of posterior pelvic tilt and keep your hips tucked under. Find a better connection with your abs that way. So this is just prep work. He's just doing a lat PNF stretch, so he's not actually doing an exercise here, or a working exercise. He's just doing an exercise to stretch out his lats. Usually, as we get a bit bigger, a bit more muscular, we sort of lose the ability to get our arms directly overhead without having to extend too much. And doing a stretch like that at the start is a great way of getting more access to that range, loosening out the lats. So you'll see he's used a stool to get up into it. It makes it a wee bit easier to get into the starting position. You'll see there's literally no swing from his upper body at all. And he's staying in posterior pelvic tilt. He's not letting his hips go behind him, tuck behind him. Solid. His legs are completely straight throughout the whole way. If it's too hard to start off with straight legs, I would go bent knees to start off with. And then as a progression, transition over to straighter and straighter legs as you get better. Done. Yeah. One more set for McMuscle, and then prone dumbbell retractions. Those are pretty good reps. He's mastered it. Very good. Very good. Glutes on you, man. What? Glutes on you, man.
Good.
Like Nicki Minaj doing those there. Prone dumbbell retractions. Really, really good exercise for your upper back, for your T-spine, for your scapula. So some of the things we're looking for here. You want your feet nice and stable. You make sure your heels stay flat. Have your chest draping over the end of the bench. You'll see this flexion in his upper back. You see his upper back bending. Might look dangerous, but it's actually very, very good for your upper back. You're taking it through. It's full flexion, it's full extension on the way up, so it's good for keeping a healthy spine. And it's under control. As long as his lower back's supported, everything should be all good. Keeping his feet flat. He's inhaling at the bottom, so what that inhale is doing, it's actually expanding his upper back, his rib cage, so the upper back musculature is getting more of a stretch. And then exhale on the way up. Full extension, his chest lifting off the pad slightly. We're focusing mostly on scapular movement here. This isn't about getting your elbows back, this is about getting your scapula back, your shoulder blades retracted. Nice wee warm-up set done. Now we get into the working sets here. Wet floor wasn't helping. Still got it done though. Yeah, that wet floor is making it harder. Feet were slipping a couple of the reps. So you can only be as strong as you are stable. If your foot position's off or your feet are in contact and not gripping on the surface, you're going to be limiting your strength. So that was a good example there, wet floor. Not a good idea. But also another thing, very particular about the benches I use. Every session I come in, I'm always using the same bench at the same angle. So this is a tricky one because basically you need a taller, longer bench for the taller and longer legs you are. If you're a shorter person, a bench this tall and long may not be good for you. So something you can do, get some rubber plates on the ground, elevate your foot position, but it's a great exercise when done right. It can look horrible when done wrong, but good one. Just getting his straps on, foot into position, or feet into position before he's ready to go. Sets himself, chest draping over the end of the bench, and he's inhaling at the bottom, expanding his rib cage. It's actually keeping your rib cage safer. When he gets a nice deep breath at the bottom, expanding all that upper back musculature, and he's getting a better stretch and more locked in, more stable. He's also adducting the bench, keeping his legs, his thighs, crushing the bench inwards, keeping him more stable too. His chest lifting off the pad when he comes up and extends. Perfect reps.
Let's get it, Rory. Let's go.
Partials. Heavy. That's the heavier set done. Started off on a back off set there. Higher reps, a wee bit lighter. That was tough. Good. Yes. Good. Perfect. Actually switching benches here. Like I said, I'm very particular about some of the benches I use. So we're doing dumbbell rows. So that's going to apply pressure forwards here into the bench. And sometimes with benches like this, it's going to slide this one up. So the one we have here, this one's locked. It's actually got a wee clip that locks it into place. So for anything like this, we're going to be applying a lot of force forwards. This one, it's not really going to budge. It's going to be more stable. Again, the more stable we are, the more force we can generate. A couple of things you'll see with the setup, like I said, same side leg forward as working arm, and his foot position is a wee bit closer forward. He's not as tall as me, his legs aren't as long, so his toes are a wee bit forward. His supporting arm is pushing into the bench. He's just over about 90 degrees, and there's very little movement coming from his hips. He's not dipping up and down or moving back and forward. He's staying quite stable, and everything is just his elbows arcing forward and then coming back into his hips. Last warm-up set done, working sets next. So always looking for the last warm-up set to be about 90% of the working sets, no more than about 5 reps. So that's it done. 55.
You're doing back up first?
Yeah, because you have to go so heavy, I just see it as a way of limiting how ridiculously heavy I have to go.
Well, that's true.
Need a break between those. These are tough.
Bring more in tank, Larry. Let's go. Yes.
Easy. Fucking hell. Oh, 16. That's a win. It's one up from last week. Very, very important you're strapping up for these two. It's incredibly heavy on your grip, so don't strap up. There's no way your forearms will be able to hold on until your back gives out. So remember, what we're trying to work here is our lats and back. We're not trying to test our grip strength, so strap up for these. Fucking hell. All right, single arm lat pull downs. So come here, I'll show you the setup for these. So gonna want to D-handle. Really see how he sets it up, how he gets in position. So gonna do these single arm at a time. So as we know, the goal with the lats is to get the upper arm. All your lats basically do is extend your upper arms. So shoulder extension. So what that means is taking your upper arm, bicep, tricep, extending them down. That's what your lats do. Anyone you see training lats out like this here, adducting their lats, it's ridiculous. You're not training your lats at all, you're training your upper back. So you'll see here, anytime we're trying to train the lats, we're trying to get that elbow down and nice and close. So a lot of times when we do 2 arms at a time, we can't really get the upper arm in close. So you'll see the setup here. He's got the same leg forward jammed in underneath. You'll see He's slightly crunched to the side, so what this does is, if you come around this angle, you'll see the shoulder, elbow and wrist are all lined up in a straight line. He's only going up as high as he can stay externally rotated, because once his arm goes much straighter, he internally rotates and his biceps start to face outwards. So it's a small range of motion. He's driving his elbows down in here, crunching his lats. He's holding on here at the pad as well. So he's in a very, very stable environment, and it's one of the best lat exercises you can do. So only going up as far as he can maintain external rotation. Once he goes higher, his arm internally rotates like that, and he takes the tension off the lats, because once you internally rotate, the beginning of the pull, your elbow's going out as opposed to coming down. When you're externally rotated like this and supinated, your elbow comes down and in, so that's why he's staying in that. No movement going on anywhere else apart from driving his elbows down into the lats. So Aaron, actually, he's on a different program than myself, so he has a lat bias row variation here. So you see his elbows are coming relatively close to his sides. They're not flared up high, coming nice and close to his sides, driving them down into his hips. He's got a neutral grip, which is just going to line up nicely with keeping that elbow in close. Once you start to go to an overhand grip, it gets harder. Get the elbows in close. Warm-up set for him. Warm-up set for myself here too. So I'm doing these one arm at a time. So jamming my leg here, so I'm nice and stable. See, what we're trying to do here is we're trying to spend time in the stretch. I'm taking a breath in at the bottom, let my upper back stretch, let the scapula protract, stretch apart, get a good stretch in that upper back musculature. I'm keeping my leg jammed here as well for more stability. I've got my supporting arm here as well, just so I'm as stable as possible. I'm focused on, when I row up, I'm actually going to extend slightly off the pad and really get that scapula retracted at the bottom, stretching over, breathe in, come back, contract. Excellent. Yes, come on. Let's go. Finish, finish. There you go. So you can see, just in this setup there, you can see the way he had his feet on those pads. This weight is trying hard to pull you forward, so you need to have counter pressure against that. You need to make sure that if there's foot pads there, that you're pressing into them, because this weight is trying to fold him over the seat, pull him forwards. So he needs to be applying a certain amount of pressure, an equal amount of pressure to keep him stable. Also see, because this is lat focused, he's keeping quite a neutral spine. He's not overarching, extending like this. He's not coming like this. He's staying quite neutral and just rolling down into his hips. You'll see, because this is more of an upper back variation, I'm going to allow more upper back or more scapular protraction, more upper back flexion here, and also a bit more extension and the contraction, whereas lat focused, you're going to stay a bit more neutral and just drive the elbows down. Oh. One set done. Fucking hell. So, rack chins. Really, really good exercise, especially coming towards the end of your back workout. It's good for decompression of the spine. Just you hanging there alone, it's going to help stretch your spine out, decompress it, lengthen it. It's also a good stretch for the lats whenever you're in that bottom position, overhead. But it's more of an upper back targeted exercise. It's quite a wide grip. Your elbows are going to flare out. And you'll notice when you're at the bottom, arms are overhead, and as you come up, you're finishing here. So it lines up really, really well with an upper back bias pull down. So body weight is heavy enough for us, and we don't need any added weight. So we're just going 2 sets to failure here. And at the end of the second set, we'll hold that stretch position as long as possible and just really stretch out the lats, as it is the last sort of back movement. Yep. Fucking hell.
Are you hanging for the last set?
Yeah. So you want to make sure you stay in that V position as well. So make sure the bench is up high enough so even at the top, kind of in that V position with your body. Let's go. Come on, Aaron. Yes, yes, finish it, finish it. There we go. A couple of the setups on this one. Number one, you're not coming straight out to the side. It's not good, right? Your side delt touches here, and it runs down this kind of an angle. It comes down at an angle. So basically to line up with that, you need to be coming out here. So setup is, and it's called the scapular plane. Number one, it's easier on your shoulders, especially as you get older or you're a bit bigger, a bit stiffer, your mobility's lacking. So you should be coming out at an angle like this. Also, another thing as well, you'll see with the delts, don't come out like this and externally rotate. You want to be internally rotated like this. So you'll see when you internally rotate like this, your side delt ends up being on top when you're at the top. So palms should be facing down throughout. Arms should be pretty much straight. Keep them locked out throughout. Out like this, out to the sides. This time we're actually pausing for 3 seconds at the top. Slightly lean forward. One warm-up set and then we're good to go. Our shoulders, elbows, biceps, everything's pretty warm, but one set to feel it, feel the movement, get used to it, and then we're ready to go into the working sets. These are going to be tough. 15 to 20 rep range with a 3-second pause. These will take it out of us. Fuck. Those are tough, but the hardest part of this range, of this movement, is the shortened position. So the very top, by spending 2-3 seconds there, it's just making this movement so much more fatiguing. Gonna get a really, really good pump. Generally, you'll get a better pump, a better feeling of muscle the more you spend in either the lengthened or the shortened range, those two extremes. Here, there's no tension in the lengthened, so there's no benefit spending time there. All the benefit is in the shortened, so spend extra time there, you're gonna get a serious pump in the delts. So, set number 2 coming up. Done. Let's go. Come on, finish them off. Yes. And again. Yes. Let's go. Come on. Come on. Yes.
That really made me feel my imbalances there. Like,
There.
roasted, yeah. Like, man, this delt feels like it's pumped to bits.
Yeah.
This one just doesn't feel as...
Mine both feel equally as massive. A couple of things with the setup with this here. This is the axis of rotation in here where this machine's rotating around. So you'll see when it moves, that's where it's rotating. So your axis on this is your shoulder. So you want to make sure your shoulder joint is lined up with each of these. You're going to be slightly lean forward, chest on the pad. Now, whenever we're running through this as well, we're going to have our arms straight as well. Not essential, you keep your arms straight, but you're just going to get less tension running through the biceps and elbows. Another thing we're going to do here is we're actually going to hold these handles. This is just basically called the irradiation effect. So basically, if you don't have all the joints tensed, contracted, working throughout this, you're going to lose a part of your ability to generate force. It's going to result in mismanaged forces as well, and it may cause a bit of joint irritation over time. So number one, you'll be stronger. So basically, you want to make sure your forearms are contracted. Now, whether you hold a handle, a ball, whatever, it doesn't really matter, but just make sure your forearms are contracted when you're running through any exercise, whether you're using cuffs, running through this, any delt exercise. Make sure the forearms are contracted. You'll be stronger around the elbows, you'll be stronger around the shoulders, and safer too. So. As this is the last delt movement, there's no more delt movements after it. No problem with doing partials, just completely exhaust the muscle. See, hardest part is the shortened range when we get to the top, so that's the part that was taxed the most. Once we weren't able to get into that shortened range, then we still had a wee bit of energy left in the mid-range and the lengthen, so fatigue that with the partials. Then once you can't even get there or hold that position anymore, delts are absolutely toasted, so job done, delts annihilated. Okay, so this is bias in the bicep and its shortened range. A lot of times you'll hear me talk about the lengthen, mid-range, shortened range, so it's just every muscle has obviously a full way from the lengthen to the mid to the shortened range. So lengthen range is just when it's stretched, mid-range is halfway up, and then shortened range is in the contraction. So through most exercises, we can bias which part of the movement is heaviest, and it just targets the muscle a wee bit different, gives us a wee bit of a different stimulus. So here, we're actually targeting the shortened range, so that means that pretty much when the biceps contracted here, this is when it's heaviest. How we know it's at its heaviest is this line of force, this cable is furthest from the axis here, so the axis is my elbow. So if we were to draw a line here, a moment arm, the distance from this line of force to the axis, it's furthest here. As we get here, the line of force runs straight through the axis, so there's actually zero tension on the biceps here. As I curl up, it's getting heavier and heavier and heavier, and here as we hit 90 degrees, it's at its heaviest. So that's how we know we're biasing the shortened range here. Last set of the day. Make it a good one.
Yes. Let's get it. Yes. Come on. Go pitch out. Let's go. Don't freak out. Come on. Yes.
Don't freak out when you see these biceps. You nearly made me bust out laughing. Oh. Job done. It's a good session. Good session. Shredded. See that? Absolutely shredded. Okay guys, so thank you very much for watching. That was our pull B rotation. So second rotation of pull, joined by Mr. McMuscle. Great session. And when we get back, we'll run through all the other workouts. If there's anything you just want clarification on, any of the things I raised or said that you didn't quite understand, don't hesitate to drop me a message. And if you enjoyed the video as well, please let me know. And we will be producing more over the coming weeks with Mr. Paul Loughran himself as well. So thank you very much for watching, and drop me a message if you enjoyed it or had any questions. Peace out.